Cool. It's a pleasure to bring our next guest to the stage. They're our sponsor this month, SRP. How about a big round of applause? The manager of Water Resources Operation, Mr. Charlie Ester. Charlie. Welcome. Good to have you here. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. I'm a little bit worried.
Well, you should be.
These are going to be 2 hard acts to follow.
Well, yeah, and we don't have a little slide for you though, so no worries.
I'm not a lawyer.
We treat you nice your first visit. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from originally?
I was born in Tyler, Texas. And I decided to move when I was about 18 months old. Told my folks I want out of here. I'm going to live up in Glendale, Arizona. And that's where I grew up.
Very cool.
And spent most of my life traveling all around the state. My mom and dad were big into camping and going to the national parks and the forests and everything, and I just got this incredible love of the outdoors.
Oh, that's awesome. Is Tyler, Texas, now I don't know why I know this, is that the home of Earl Campbell?
It is, yes. He and I were neighbors.
But you left when you were 18 months old. Charlie, I'm starting
to see... Well, he was young, too.
Okay. I'm starting to see some inconsistencies in your story here, Charlie. Well, welcome to Mesa. I'm sure you're here on a regular basis since SRP now, is it just valley-wide or statewide? Is there SRP everywhere?
Yes and no.
Okay.
I mean, for water supply, we're pretty much valley-wide. But in terms of power, we have a little bit of a greater reach, and some of our power plants are well outside of the valley and even the state.
Oh, really? Okay. Now, I noticed your title, Water Resource Operations. So what's a day in the life of Charlie Ester?
A day in the life, well, I arrive at work usually around 6:30 in the morning and met with people just like this. Everyone's smiling and loving to be at work.
Do they wave flags at you?
Sometimes.
They don't do it here either, evidently.
Typically, at least recently, it's not been real exciting because of how dry our weather has been the last many years. As you all know, we've been in this terrible drought. But there are some times, I think you're seeing some pretty nice photos where we get to do things like this. During the winter, we'll go up to the mountains and measure snowpack. We then take that information and develop runoff forecasts into our reservoirs to see how much water we'll have for the next season. Develop reservoir operating plans. That's where the operations part comes in. That's the best time of my life when we have flood events and the rivers are flowing. In fact, that's a great little story. I mean, as a hydrologist, I really like surface water and lots of flow and seeing the dams overflow. And I thought, you know, when I hired on at SRP, it had been a few wet years and there was lots of that flooding going on, and then it turned dry. And so for the last 20 years of my career, I've been dealing with drought. No floods, drought, groundwater pumping, all this stuff. But we're getting through it. Our reservoirs are still 54% full, and as far as I'm concerned, we're in about the 19th year of this drought, and we're gonna make it through it. At some point, it's gonna turn wet again, I guarantee it.
That previous slide, what was that? It showed a dam that was overrunning. Where was that?
I don't know, I didn't see it.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it had to be one of 6 of them, but I don't.
I'm gonna go with that.
This is Gilbert Road.
Really?
Yep.
Well, that's cool. You know, if that ever happens, you know where I'm going?
To
Otto's house.
Otto's boat, yeah.
He's building a boat.
You might want to just take the airplane.
Yeah, get out of here. That is awesome. So speaking of weather, I know you don't have a crystal ball, but what do you foresee this winter? Because that's where it happens with the snowpack and all that.
Our water supply really depends on what we get in the winter. And even though, as I said, I'm a hydrologist, I'm not a meteorologist, but I do play one many times. And we look at a lot of information. And believe it or not, for Arizona, the biggest driver of our winter weather are Central Pacific Ocean sea surface temperatures. When they're warm, you've all heard the term El Nino. That tends to give us wet winters. When it's cool, that's a La Nina, and it's almost a sure thing of having a dry winter. Well, this year, we have what's called neutral conditions, what I like to call La Nada conditions. It doesn't tell us anything. You might as well take a 3-sided coin, if there is such a thing, for above normal, normal, and below normal, and just flip it and see what you can get. Now, the nice thing about neutral conditions, you can get really wet or normal, and unfortunately, you can get really dry. But if it was a La Nina like it was 2 years ago, you're guaranteed a dry winter. So there is some hope, and I'm always hopeful. You know, in this business, when the best condition for me is when the dams are just full to the top. I like to think you put one drop in at Roosevelt and one drop comes out at Stewart Mountain Dam. I mean, that's how I like the dams, because I know the last day those dams are full is the next day of the drought starting again. Because face it, we live in a desert.
Sure.
And every drop of water is precious, and we need to conserve that water and use it wisely. And
you're making me thirsty here.
oh yeah. You know, and that's why you want to be here.
I'm a water manager too.
Yeah, you know, the only thing better than this is what they serve here at Crescent Crown.
Stick around afterwards. We have a party every month. There's 1 million cases of beer on the other side of that wall. It's awesome. Well, cool. This is fascinating. You know what?
That's Roosevelt.
Now, I have a little getaway up in the White Mountains.
Okay.
And somebody told me, I hope this is correct, that that's one of the largest aquifers in North America, underneath the White Mountains. Is that correct? Please tell me yes.
Oh, yes, it is.
Because that's my bug out station when it all hits the fan.
I think you're probably talking about the Little Colorado Plateau area, which starts in the White Mountains and then slopes kind of west, northwest towards, you know, Holbrook and Winslow. That whole area, huge, vast area, is in fact a gigantic aquifer. Yes.
Oh, good to know. Cool. So what kind of, we're all water consumers. What kind of advice would you have for just the average homeowner? Does that fall into your jurisdiction of advice or expertise? What should we do?
Well, you know, I don't think we need to do anything draconian or make our lives less enjoyable. But if you treat every ounce of water that comes out of your faucet as if it's significant and important, and you know, you just treat it with respect and use it wisely. I mean, I think if we all did that, I think we'd go a long way towards conserving our water supplies. But I don't, you know, if you think about it, about half, just roughly half of our water is used outdoors, okay? So if we ever got into an absolutely crisis situation where all of our dams are approaching empty and we know we can't pump enough groundwater to meet everyone's needs, all the cities could get together with SRP and CAP and say, from now on, there's going to be no outside groundwatering, no outside watering of plants. So right away, you've essentially doubled your water supply. So we have that sort of wild card in the back of our pocket. But do we want to live that way all the time? I don't think we really do. But if you just do that wise use of water all the time, I think we'll get through this. And you've got an incredible staff at SRP managing the water supplies of the Salt and the Verde. We're doing all sorts of things to make sure that we don't get into that situation.
Good to know. Well, thank you very much. Charlie, we appreciate you stopping by. Thank you so much. And come back when there's a big onslaught of water, and we'll talk about it some more.
I would love to. That'd be great.
Mr. Charlie Ester, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.